Hello, Mustafa. Oh, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay, yeah. Okay, hello, Mustafa, and hello, everyone that is watching this event. So today we have a very interesting and specific topic, which is how to master the art of modern deployment with scaling with Kubernetes. So my name is Enea, and I don't know much about Kubernetes, but we have an expert here. We have Mustafa Calik, who is an engineer or a DevOps engineer, and is going to share his experience, his knowledge with us about Kubernetes. So Mustafa, before you make a short presentation of yourself, I would like to tell some very points about what are we going to do today. So this is going to be a tech talk, and our topic, as I mentioned, is going to be about Kubernetes. So I just wanted to tell to everyone that is listening to this event, you can ask any questions from the question and answers part here, as you can see. Also, if you're watching it from YouTube, then you can ask your questions there, and the questions will be forwarded. Actually, I have a question from now, which is will we be able to get a copy of the recording after the presentation? I think this is being streamed live on YouTube, so that it should be there. But someone can give a more specific answer on the, there. Anyways, Mustafa, so welcome, and I'm very glad to have you here.
Hi, welcome. I'm welcome too, hopefully. So let me introduce myself so we can go ahead and talk about the Kubernetes after that. So I'm a DevOps engineer at the Fidelity Life. We are doing the life insurance, so it is the insurance company. And then before that I was working onto another insurance company. I started as the IT, the management, like IT jobs at the school environment, working with the on-prem server and dealing with the students, teachers, and accounts and computers and all the other stuff. And then after that is this DevOps engineer become more familiar, so I switched into the DevOps engineer. And last 5 years I am working as a DevOps engineer.
5 years. Okay. That's a long time for a DevOps engineer, I would say.
Yeah.
5 years. Okay.
Because then, as you said, like I am seeing some of the job application, and they are asking, okay, 10 years DevOps engineer and stuff.
Good luck with that, right?
And then I was laughing because it's very new trending. So then it's not just started like 10 years ago. So my daily job is the helping the team, and then making and trying to make the automation and then using the DevOps tools. And also I used to teach at the Clarusway as a DevOps the course. And hopefully we may start the Kubernetes certification CKAD the course, and so we are planning on that one. So we can talk this certification later on, I guess.
Yeah, I believe so.
So I'm married, so then I have 3 kids, and sometimes it's not easy to work from home and dealing with the 3 kids. But it's okay. So I like it more.
Yeah. So thank you for this presentation, and I'm pretty sure that your kids are pretty happy with you being home. I mean, yeah, it's difficult for you, but probably they're very happy to have their dad around, right? It's not that dad is going to the office. When is he going to come back? Now, you mentioned, Mustafa, that 5 years ago you switched, right, to DevOps.
Yes.
And why did you decide to do such a thing? Like, was like a moment, or were you thinking and checking the new trends and you said, okay, this is what I need to do now?
Yeah,
how did that happened, the transition?
Transition is like the first thing is we had like agreement with the AWS that time, so and they were offering to the schools like some the program and they were offering like a free AWS account and stuff, like, and they can introduce the students to cloud environments. And I was also, before that I was always interested into cloud technology and stuff. But it's not like related to my job because my job was on-prem. And then I introduced to those AWS and cloud environment, and I really like it. And I was searching either like becoming like a cloud engineer or the DevOps engineer. So it was starting the trend that time. And I like it, and I always trying to do like more automation stuff, like creating script instead of like creating individual user account each by each, like we were using like a script to create all those things. And I really like it, and I took like a 3 months the course, like kind of intensive course, DevOps course. And then after that, I started working as a DevOps engineer.
Okay, that is great. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. So now, as we mentioned, we are going to talk a bit more specifically about Kubernetes, right? So can you give an overview, or let's call it presentation, of what Kubernetes is for those who are new to technology?
Yeah, the Kubernetes is like is always trending right now. And many company, even if they are not using the Kubernetes, and they are asking like a Kubernetes knowledge. And I see like even when I applied to this job, and they were asking some Kubernetes the experience, but we are not exactly using the Kubernetes. We are using the ECS right now. We are trying to get into the Kubernetes because of the lack of knowledge, and I was the only one who knows a little bit Kubernetes, and including the manager and stuff. So the Kubernetes is if you want to talk about Kubernetes, we have to talk about first is the microservices, like a container technology, because still some of the company, they are using the legacy, and it's called the legacy. That means like it's one big application. So in that application, there is no creating like a smaller part. And if we want to talk about, let's say about the Google, and Google has many product, right? So Google Map is product, Gmail is product, and each of them has their own application or their own the software. So and if you think the legacy, so all of them has like a big the application. You have to organize it or like architecture it. So it's not very easy because each of them has their own specification, resources, and if you think, and all of them. So it's really big application. And then if you think about like a development of that application or they're creating new feature, so you have to kind of stop all of the features, and it's going to affect it because you are going to deploy it or you are trying to create a new feature. So that time, and they started, and first is actually it started with the VM virtual machine. And I remember using the virtual machine because we had like an on-prem server. The server has like a like, let's say 5 CPU and 10 gigabyte memory and those stuff. But we weren't using all of them. So that means like you are going to either waste money, or you have to use kind of virtualization to make it your server more usable. And then when it started the virtual machine, everyone was happy because the server, and if you want to pay the server, and it's expensive, and they don't have like a specific match to your need. And let's say a unit only is 2 CPU, but there's not available only 2 CPU, or there is not available only that kind of memory or resources. So, but after the virtualization, so then it started more common, like you can create the virtual environment and you can use it. And you can use it and for the different purposes. You can install the Windows, you can install the Linux, you can install the different operating system on the same server. So it was really brilliant idea at that time. Then after that, but it's become like you have to install the whole operation system into the virtual machine. And even if when you start your server is taking time, so and then you have to deal with the whole operating system for each virtual machine that you created. Then the Docker came into the game, and then it changed the whole thing. So then the virtual it's become like a more microservices. And after the Docker become more popular, so it's become like a containerization, like you have to containerize your application. What is the container? Means like think about one application. Application means like it's not just you are writing the application. The application sometimes need the libraries, sometimes need like additional resources, or your application needs to connect to databases. So those kind of things is becoming like a more headache for the software engineer. So and also like when you create your application, it may work on your computer, but it may not work onto different computer. If you are using Mac and you have to create in that solution, if they are using Windows and different solution. So it's become like a headache that time. So with the Docker, so you can create your environment, put your application in that is called the container, and then you can run it anywhere if they have the Docker. So it's really become popular, and then also those containers is really fast and it can start it easily, and it's not gonna take too much spaces because you don't need any operating system in that container, because most of the operating system at least like a 2 GB or more than maybe. So and the container, it's become like a less very lightweight, so then you can start it immediately. So and it changed everything like and after Docker, so then people were thinking like we have the container and it's working, but if you have like 100 containers, so how are we going to handle them? So it's become like a more orchestration tools they needed. And then Google was already using and that technology. It's called before the Kubernetes, and the Google was already using, and then Google gave it to the open sources, CFN. So and that become more popular, and they call it the Kubernetes, or some people they call it the K8. And between K and S, and there is like 8 letters, so that's the reason they call it K8s. The Kubernetes is the orchestration of those containers. So and you have your application, you put them in the container, so it's already working, but you have to have the services, and you have to have so if your containers die, so you need to restart it, and those kind of things. And it's become more easy with the Kubernetes. So basically Kubernetes is the container orchestration tool, and you have to create your application and put them in the container, and then after that is you can easily deal with the Kubernetes to create your container and put it into your cluster, and then it will run it over there. So maybe it was a very long explanation.
I think it's the longest answer that I ever got.
Yeah, and then I was reading some of the stuff about the Kubernetes, and so if they want to be fancy, like any IT person, and when they say, oh, I know Kubernetes. It's become like everyone, oh, you know Kubernetes. It's not very easy to learn it, but when you learn it and you can keep diving it, so it's not very as comprehensive. But when you learn it, so it's you will like it. Like I mean, you don't want to go back to different orchestration tool. So I would say.
Okay, yeah, I believe so. I mean, I don't know it very much, but yeah. Now you mentioned that, you know, I mean, it's a new trend, and it's really cool to say that, you know, Kubernetes, right? Now, but I have a question, because there are lots of technologies, you know, as you said, it is an orchestration tool, and there are others out there. So, if someone that learns Kubernetes now, what would you give as a period of time that, you know, you learn this technology now, and for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you'll for sure have a job if you learn it well? Could you say something like that? I mean, I know that it's a very assumptuous and speculative question, but I just want to know, like, what do you think about it? Do you think that someone that learns Kubernetes now for sure will have it worked for 10 years? It's not going to fade out or something. What do you think about it?
I don't think it will fade out, and it will become more popular. Right now is like and I was reading another article, and it was saying like at least 40% technology they are transitioning to Kubernetes. So, and then Kubernetes has two sides also. One is the administration side, so you have to administer your cluster, so you have to take care of your cluster. When it's need to any scheduling, when it's need to do any patching, and when you want to give someone right and those kind of things. And the second part is the developer part, and you have to develop your application, and it will run into the Kubernetes. And then DevOps engineer is between them, and you have to know a little bit development, and then you have to deploy your application into the Kubernetes, and you have to also take care of the cluster. So as you said, in 10 years, I'm pretty sure, and as my experience, and you will get the job. And then if you know very well, and then people are looking for it, because the most of the DevOps engineer they came from their own company, like they used to, for example, in my company, and we have only 2 DevOps engineers. They are like come from like so from the operation side, I could say. And they know like to the system, so they know about the networking, they know about some other stuff. But most of the other people, they come from the development side. So then they used to be as a developer, and they want to switch the job, so they become the DevOps engineer. So that means like they don't know that much about the DevOps tool, but they are kind of afraid to learn the new tool also. And they want to stay on the side, like whatever they were using, they don't want to change it. But the company is, they are looking for the new technology, right? So then they are forcing you to learn it. And that's the reason is Kubernetes is going to be like a more popular, I'm pretty sure. They already, most company, they already started using it, and they like it, and they are keep spreading the word, and other company will start it and using it soon too.
Okay, so everyone, you just heard, you learn Kubernetes, you have a job at least for 10 or 15 years. Yeah. that is cool. All right, so now you mentioned that Kubernetes is an orchestration tool, right? So, or they say the container. So how does it compare to other container orchestration tools, you know, in terms of scalability and resource optimization, or a general comparison? Why should we, you know, go with Kubernetes and not with another one?
Okay. The Kubernetes, it is not the only orchestration tool. They have like the mesos and Nomad is the one HashiCorp just created that one. And there is OpenShift, and there are ranchers. There are other other orchestration tool. Why is the Kubernetes is more popular? Because first thing is the open source. So that means then you can use it into the bare metal, so you can install it to your own on-prem server, or you can use it with any cloud environment. So if you want to use the Kubernetes with the AWS, and there's a solution, it's called the EKS. Or if you want to use it with Azure, so there's a AKS and Azure Kubernetes system, like services, or Google, and many other cloud providers. So they are offering you to the Kubernetes system. So that's the reason, one of the reasons. So if you know it, so that means like even if you change your provider, so your knowledge is going to be still same. So and depending on to which cloud environment, some of the company been using like a hybrid. So that means some of their resources on the AWS, some of them is into Azure or Google Cloud. So that way is the Kubernetes will become more popular. So you can use it anywhere. So one of the reason is the open source and then more popular. Another is the scaling is very easy. And then with the Kubernetes is you can scale either horizontal or vertical. So horizontal means like you can create more container, more pod, we call it. So, and whenever your application need more load, so that means like if your audience and whoever is using your application, if it's increasing, so you can easily and do it with the horizontal immediately without any down time. So that's another benefit. You can increase it like a 1 pod to 5 pod immediately. And if you don't have that much usage, then you can scale down also. And scale up means like if you have more customers, so you can scale up easily. You can have more resources. Or if you and during nighttime, let's say, and then you don't have that much customers, so you can scale down and then save the money. So it's very easy. And then also another benefit of using Kubernetes is the self-healing. What does it mean, self-healing? So let's say and your application, you put it in the container and you are running into Kubernetes cluster, and suddenly your container stopped working and something happened. And so what the Kubernetes is doing, self-healing, and it's recreating your pod. So with the same kind of environment, so that way then your application is not going to stop running, right? Another the cool the feature of the Kubernetes is the easy to deploy. So there are some different deployment type, and you can call it. The one is let's say, and then you created a new version, so you want to deploy it. And one way is to you need to stop your application, and you will deploy your new application, and then it will become available, right? One of the ways is then people are still doing it, and during nighttime, so they will deploy the new feature. So and maybe it's 5 to 10 minutes, and it's the downtime, and your application will stop working. One of the system is like that. Another one is you can still your application will run, and then you will deploy the newer version, and you can some of your customer will see the newer version, some of the customer will see the older version, and there will be no downtime. So that means your application is still up, and you are gonna systematically deploy to your application. And let's say then you will deploy one pod and it's going to kill another pod, you are going to deploy other one, and and you have the option onto Kubernetes. That this is the one of the best advantage, and there will be no downtime about your application. So that way is and as I said, is very scalable. And second is the self-healing, and it will restart your part, and it's gonna fix your application if there's something wrong. And third one is easy to deployable. So with the newer technology, and then you can use, there are some the package manager for the Kubernetes. I don't want to go in that deep. So those three things is very becoming like a more popular onto Kubernetes. So other technology is not very popular, but some people are using it because of maybe the knowledge. They don't have that much knowledge about the Kubernetes, or they have really the big project and they need like a certain stuff from that company, and they are supporting, and they are maybe creating your cluster, and everything is supporting. And if you need those kind of things, and you may use it in different solution. But if you really like the open source, and if you really like with the cloud technology, so you should definitely choose the Kubernetes.
Okay, thank you very much. You give such detailed answers. I really thank you. Now, excuse me. We talk about how great Kubernetes is, and you know, like what is going to be the future. But I'm looking about something like really specific. So since a lot of companies are trying to use it, transit to Kubernetes, it means that it may have some significant impact on different industries or use cases. So, like, can you give me some examples where Kubernetes had a great impact, of course, a positive impact when it comes to different kind of industries or some use cases or whatever it can be?
So if you search it and what is the effect on Kubernetes, one of the most common company you will hear it is the Netflix. Netflix and started using the Kubernetes. So it's really impacting their streaming time, and everyone is able to, I mean, they can deploy the different server and different region. It's really impact onto the Netflix and streaming, so it's become more popular. So it has that time it has Netflix and some other companies, but when the Netflix switched to the Kubernetes, it's really impacted. So then people really liked it, and you will watch the movie and without any delay, or without any pausing, and without any difficulties, like depending on your internet speed and stuff. It's really affected. And then they can also easily deploy to new movie, and it can get the people what they want, and so they can release it easily. Before that, it was not easy to release some deployment, but with the Kubernetes, it's become less painful, and then they can release it easily. So that way, even during the days, so they are putting the new movie, new release, and new stuff. And then if you are thinking about also the personalized that Netflix, and it's become more complex, right? So you want to watch something, and it will show up on your screen and different, and then it will show up in someone else's screen in different movies and different types. So, and then they are dealing like a really big data, but the microservices and Kubernetes make them very easy. And I can say another solution, and automobile, like the cars company, so they started using it because they need immediate interaction, right? So then, and especially if they have like a let's say Tesla or other electric company, So they are using like they need to get the road conditions, and then depending on, and it's gonna show you immediately. So it's because of the Kubernetes, it's really fast, and it can get the data, and then it can compile it, and it can give the solution what you are asking for. So it's become more popular. And the company, I mean, not the company, the brand, they are using like into the F-16, like the plane. In the same, like you need to get get the data, and then just whatever you need to achieve from that data. So it's really fast. So then they started using the Kubernetes on those F-16 too. Again, so those are is just coming to my mind, and I'm pretty sure there are lots of different companies they have use cases as come to the microservices and the Kubernetes.
Okay, well, pretty interesting, especially with the F-16s. I mean, I would expect from the streaming services, they are pretty good when it comes to following the new trends, right? Because that's how they survive. Okay, so we've been talking on mostly about like how cool it is and positive things. So I want to get into something that may be a bit more negative. I don't know. So I want to talk about some common challenges that organizations face when implementing Kubernetes at scale. So what are some?
Yeah, one of the challenges is the lack of knowledge. So I would say, again, so as a sample in my company, so I was the only one and knows about the Kubernetes, and some of the people, they are scared, and because it's a little bit complex. Another challenge onto Kubernetes, you have to prepare it. Like when you prepare your clusters, when it's start working, so it's easy to use it. But before that, you have to do the preparation. So especially like if you are doing the finance, if you are doing the health insurance, and some of those things is you have to be more careful, because you are dealing with the security data, like people birthday, people, social security number or credit card. You have to really make it secure, your cluster, so that way is no one is able to get your data and stolen, right? So then so that one is like, for example, in my previous company, we were the healthcare, so we need to be careful. So we prepare like around 5 to 6 months, just trying to create a cluster, very secure. So we even talk about like with some of the other companies, service mesh, like dealing with the all networking inside of your cluster, which part needs to talk to which part, and then we don't want to do any outgoing from our pods, so any data, so we want to restrict it. Some of the stuff is not available onto cloud environments, so they have their own restriction. So preparation is really hard. But when you create your cluster, so after that it's very easy, like deploying your application and creating your services and creating those other tools into Kubernetes. It's become more easy. But creating the cluster and making it really secure and making it really robust cluster, so it's not easy.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I just want to clarify something, because it has been asked 2 or 3 times, I believe, which is about, can we have a copy of the recording after the lecture? As I mentioned previously, this is streamed, like this event is streamed live on YouTube. So after the event, you will be able to watch it on YouTube. Basically, that would be considered a copy of our event. So again, I want to get into another topic, which is about like you mentioned that a lot of companies are switching to Kubernetes, and I believe that everything that most of the companies do, or any change or any transition they do, is about cost efficiency, right? So if we're doing something, it has to cost less probably, and it also means that they want to use less resources. So what is the Kubernetes role in optimizing resource utilization and cost efficiency?
Yeah.
How does it help the companies?
The cost again, we already talked about the scalability. So why are we using scalability? Because we want to save the money. So we don't want to spend resources when we don't need it. So that means it's kind of to scale down. Let's say during like a nighttime and we don't have that much customers, so we need to scale down so then we can save money, because AWS is charging per hours, or even some of the tools per minutes and per usage. So that way and you can use the Kubernetes to save money, because it's really easy to scale up or scale down. And another thing is it's really important, and you don't want to do any downtime on your application. For example, in my insurance company, like they were saying, like if our application is down 1 minute, so we will lose like let's say $100,000 or whatever, because the agency and they are not able to use our application to call the customer, so we are losing the customers and stuff. Similar things onto the Netflix, right? So if the Netflix is down, so you weren't able to watch it, so you want to try to switch the other company, right? So it's the same thing, or any application you can think of if they have any downtime, and if that downtime is like a really long and then they are not able to manage it, so and they can easily switch to different application. So the Kubernetes is really providing you to scale up and scale down easily. So that way, one of the things is you can save the money. And another thing is like in the legacy, the legacy application is, and we were talking about earlier, it's really big application. But if you go into the microservices, so that means that you are dealing is one part of your application. So one team is only dealing with, and I was giving the Google example, Google Map. One team is only dealing with the Gmail part. One application is dealing with the different Google product. So that way is then each application, and you can you are not depending on the other parts, and you can easily change the features and edit new features or other stuff, or you can just only release that part of your application. So that means this you will save more money because you are dealing with this small part of your application. So you are just gonna focus on that application. You don't need to think about the other part of your application. So the microservices and Kubernetes is giving you more flexibility. So that way is so then you can easily deal with your application. And Kubernetes and other services is providing like a load balancing and simplicity and the container management. So you don't need that much tools that when you are dealing without the Kubernetes. Let's say, and then you need to create your infrastructure, you need to create take care of your the server, you need to and pay the money for the load balancing, all the other stuff. But in most of the things, when you create your cluster and you are done with infrastructure, so you are just only dealing with developing your application and then deploying your application into the cluster. So there is another benefit, because for example, in my company, we are not using Kubernetes right now, we are using ECS. And one of the reasons is we don't want to deal with infrastructure parts. So we are giving money to AWS to just configure for us. And you will be more flexible with the Kubernetes, and then you are going to save money, because when you create your cluster, you don't deal with any other infrastructure. So everything is become like the more easy for you for deploying your application and running your application into the cluster.
All right. It was
And probably, and also they will look at the price, and if you use the Kubernetes, and they are looking the price if you don't use the Kubernetes, and depending on to the needs on the company, and that's the reason is they are choosing Kubernetes is to pay less money instead of using the other resources.
Okay, thank you. So, Mustafa, we've got a question. Are you able to see the question and answers part? There should be a question there.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's a question from Calvin. If you like that question, you can answer.
Okay. What is the difference deploying application in any cloud provider, K8, infrastructure like AWS, and in Kubernetes? What is the and let me read the question. What is the difference in deploying application in any cloud provider, K8 infrastructure like AKS, EKS, and GKE, and I can say, and in Kubernetes? You mean like the regular Kubernetes, or what is the difference, like deploying your application into the cloud environment or deploying? So I'm trying to understand the questions. Can you be more specific?
Yeah, Calvin, please, can you be more specific? You can also raise hand and ask,
Yeah.
You can just speak out if that is easier for you. I think Calvin, oh, okay, yeah, talking permitted.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I was asking whether it's because I'm seeing some organization, they are deploying the application in EKS infrastructure.
Yes.
Okay. What's the difference between deploying an application in EKS or just regular Kubernetes? You see, a regular Kubernetes, you have you as a DevOps engineer, you have all the you manage the cluster itself.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing nowadays companies are moving to this cloud Kubernetes infrastructure.
Yes. The reason is one is the most the common thing is they don't want to deal like the server and no worker node, and we can tell because in those worker node on the Kubernetes, you are running your the container in there on there. If it's the on-prem, like the Kubernetes, you are administrating it. So you need to update them, you need to patch them, you need to make sure that it's secure. But if you are using AWS and they are doing it for you, and of course, and they are charging. But if it's come to and you have to spend time and people on there, right? And let's say, and two people, they need to take care of your cluster. You need to pay them, and also it's taking time. And sometimes then people are not very good at patching or doing other stuff, and it's not very secure, your cluster. And you want to pay some money to AWS, and they will take care of for you. Even AWS, they have like a solution. It's called the Fargate. You don't need to deal enough to your worker nodes, so they are gonna take care of for you. So you only need to take care of like a cluster part and how many worker nodes you need it and those kind of things. And then with the Fargate, and it can start it when you need it more load. So it will become like a more nodes. So then, and if your application is growing and your customers is growing, so you can easily scale it with the Fargate. And if you don't need it that much, it's gonna scale down again. So you can save the money. And you don't need to take care of any server, and then you can just run your application. So but of course it's costing money. But if you think of like costing money, and you need to hire someone to take care of those things, and AWS part is become like a less money. So that's the reason. And the company, they don't wanna take care of the part. They want to give that responsibility to AWS and then pay them. Otherwise, you need to take care of it, and you need to pay the people. And then it's not easy to find those people sometimes. And then you need to pay more money, and instead of paying to AWS. So that's the reason is people are switching more into the AWS EKS or Azure solution, because some of the stuff is already taken care of for you. And of course, and it's the cloud environment, and it's really working with any of the AWS services if you are using inside of AWS. So that way, if you are running on your prem, so you need to take care of the networking part. You need to take care of how you are gonna reach the data in somewhere, or you need to do the transfer. It's not very convenient. But if your application is already on the cloud, why not using the EKS? Because it's already compatible with any of the AWS tools. So that's another reason people are switching, because you are already using the cloud, and you have some tools, and you want to use the half tool in your on-prem, and you want to use some of them in the cloud. So it's not very easy. So, and they are completely moving on to the cloud. So that way is an end of the tool, it will become available for them. I hope it will answer that questions.
I believe it was enough, right, Calvin?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you for your question there. I always love when we got questions from the audience. So now, Mustafa, I want to get, I mean, we talked a lot about how to say technical parts. So since we are in our last minutes, I want to talk about something which is more cheerful, and which is about pursuing a career, right? Or changing your career. So more about some small advice that you could give to people. So, I would say, what advice would you give to people who are looking to pursue, to follow a career in DevOps and Kubernetes? Like, it doesn't have to be something, very specific, but what kind of advice would you like to give to those people? Why should people do it?
Okay. So in the DevOps you need to always learn new skills and new tools, because DevOps is so I would say is the many tools, so you need to know it, and then the tools it depends on the company also. And let's say, and then you learn it AWS, right? And you got job offer in some other company, they are using Azure, and you got job offer in using Google Cloud or different tools. So each company, they have their own tool. So it's sometimes become problematic because you don't know that tool. So as a DevOps engineer, so you need to improve yourself and then learn the new skills and new tool. And so I would say is you have to look at the trend, what company they started, which tool they are using it, and you need to start learning it. You can, as a nowadays, so you can learn anything from YouTube, Udemy, or other courses. So you have to challenge yourself, and let's say in this year I want to learn this tool, and because it's most company they are using it, and when I become like a expertise on that, and next year so I want to learn the other tool. So one of the tool, and I would definitely suggest, is the infrastructure as a tool, like a Terraform. Another tools is this is the Kubernetes, especially, and if the company they already have the microservices and they have already have their Kubernetes cluster, and then people are looking, like if you look at any job application, 40% is they are asking like a Kubernetes knowledge. So that means like you should definitely start from somewhere and learn from, and then Kubernetes has really good documentation, and you can find many videos about the Kubernetes, and then you can install it even your own laptop, like you can use the Minikube, or they are offering many online clusters, so you can dive into and create a pod, create the services, create the stuff. Another good way to learn the Kubernetes is taking the certification exam.
I was going to talk about that. You know, what kind of certification do you
So
suggest?
the Kubernetes exam is not like a multiple the questions, like a multiple answers, like as one question. In AWS is they are asking, okay, how can you do that, and A, B, C, D, and you have to pick one, right? But in the Kubernetes is they are asking question, you need to apply your knowledge and then create those things into the cluster. So they are giving you the cluster, so you are entering their own cluster, and they are telling you, okay, this is the path specification, you need to create it. So it's like it's not like a multiple answer questions, right? So you need to learn it and apply it. So it's a little bit different. That means it's make you to learn it and apply it your knowledge. Because like I took the AWS certification exam, so after 10 days I can forget it because it's the question. So if I'm not using it in my company, that tool, so I can easily forget it. But Kubernetes is not like that. So you are learning and you are applying that knowledge, and they're asking you to apply your knowledge into the Kubernetes exam questions. So all hands-on, and they are asking like let's say 10 to 20 questions. So normally you can easily do those questions when you have like more time, but they are putting you the less time to make it more quickly. So that means you need to practice more and learn more, so then when you see the question, immediately you can do it easily. And of course, then you need to use some of the technique also to make that question in less time. Otherwise, though, you may not finish all the question, you may not pass the exam. So, and the Kubernetes exam is the all hands-on. That means you need to know and apply your knowledge, and then make it in the specific time.
All right, so I believe I will come to I mean, I have many questions, but definitely that would be too long. So I will come to my final question for tonight, which is about resources, right? So we talked about how good it is, how nice it is, how cool it is, how it can get you a lot of money. I mean, we didn't mention, but we know that it can give you a job with a lot of money. So, but for this, we need a place. And what kind of place? A place where we can get this kind of information, where we can learn. So can you share some resources with us about where people can learn Kubernetes? It can be, I don't know, online resources, courses, boot camps, whatever you would like to share with us.
So one of the resources, definitely Kubernetes.io, is their own Kubernetes documentation. And in the exam is the good thing is you can use that resources, so they're not restricting. So you can go to Kubernetes.io, and then if you need to look at something, so you can copy paste and stuff too. So because of the hands-on the questions, hands-on activity, so they are allowing you to use that resources. So that means you need to start learning from there, so then you can use it during the exam too. So this is the really good benefit. Another thing is like if you are already in any DevOps like a course. They are teaching it in there. Like I was teaching onto the Clarusway like DevOps courses. So we are spending like 10 different the class time. So to try to cover the Kubernetes. Some maybe other DevOps courses, they are maybe not covering that much, but I would definitely suggest them to, if they want to go into the DevOps and the Kubernetes, then they can take that course. And also we are now preparing new the courses about the certification, CKAD, because there are like two certification exam. One is the CKAD, another one is CKA. CKAD is a little bit easier than the CKA exam. So we will start with that. So if you have like a knowledge of the Docker, a little bit knowledge of the Kubernetes, so it will be enough for these classes. So we will go over and all the Kubernetes tools and items, and then we will also cover the some of the question you may face during the certification exam. So it will be a really good benefit. So you are going to learn the Kubernetes, and also you will be prepared for the exam, so then you can take the exam and when you finish that courses. So it will be really good on your resume and then LinkedIn profile. And if they see like and I ask from many recruiters, and when they see like any CKA or CKA the exam certification on your resume or LinkedIn, so they are trying to reach out to you. So you don't need to even reach out to them, so they will come to you. And then so it's really good benefit. So again, you will learn about the Kubernetes, and also you will apply your knowledge onto the certification exam. So you will have like two benefits.
Okay, so Mustafa, we've got one last question if you want to answer, of course, which is from YouTube. You can't see it. It came to me as a private message, which is, what career is easier to break, DevOps or cloud engineer? If you want to answer to that pretty briefly.
DevOps or cloud engineer. So I would say the cloud engineer is you can start and then you can move on to the DevOps engineer after that, because the cloud engineer is mostly focusing on the one cloud provider, but the DevOps engineer is you need to know the cloud, and then plus the DevOps tool like infrastructure as a tool, Terraform or Ansible or Kubernetes or Docker. And you need to know more knowledge. Some company, they have like a cloud engineer and DevOps engineer, and some company is that they have only DevOps engineer take care of the cloud engineer part too. So depending on the company, I would say and start with the cloud engineer. So you can easily learn any AWS tool, so as a cloud engineer, and you can find also more job, because it's like a beginner job, kind of entry level stuff, so you can find some more job available. But in the DevOps they are asking more experience, like a senior level or junior level. Some company, they started looking for entry level, but most of the job is when you try to get in as a DevOps engineer is the either junior or senior position. So that way is also sometimes is getting as a DevOps engineer, it is hard, but when you start from the cloud engineer, so it will be more easy. And then also after learning the cloud engineer, so you can learn the more DevOps tool, and then you can switch into the DevOps tools. So I would do like a cloud engineer first, and then do the DevOps after that.
Yeah, actually, that is how Clarusway do their bootcamps, right? It's like AWS and DevOps. First, they're teaching AWS, like getting easy, and then you get to DevOps. Yeah, thank you. So to everyone, thank you for being part of this event. It was a real pleasure for me to talk to Mustafa and learn from him, everything about Kubernetes. We have shared two links. If you go a bit up, the first one is if you want to have a one-on-one interview with one of the Clarusway's career advisors, you can just click on that link. And also we have the registration link there. So as I mentioned, thank you everyone for being here. Mustafa, thank you so much for giving such clear and long answers. You know, like they were like a real description of everything that we asked. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, it was not easy to answer those questions about the Kubernetes, because sometimes it's not easy to without showing it as a demos or samples and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
and trying to teach people like, oh, there's a Kubernetes control panel or work node and all the other stuff. But hopefully, during the classes, we will do always, first is the teaching the concept, and then after that is you will do the demo and then on hands-on activity.
Yeah, much more hands-on.
Yeah, that way you will more understand it. But other time when you just try to learn it from the subject or like it's not easy. So without applying your knowledge. And especially if it's the Kubernetes.
Yeah, and it needs interaction at the same time, right?
Needs someone you need to get your hands dirty and try to do the demo and try to learn it that way, so you will more understand it.
Okay, so thanks again, and have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.
Bye, guys.